see my girlfriend here. That's good. Good to see you. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, I heard a cat meowing outside. There was a cat, so I don't know. I hope it's not lost and had a collar on. But today we're talking about, hey, welcome, Bonnie. Good to see you on here. Hey, good. Good to see you too, man. Josh White here. A lot of good people on. Talking about creating new beliefs today. And this is day 6 of the 7-day manifestation challenge. So we've been talking about, well, I've been talking about, some people have been chatting about the topics though. We've talked about getting real. We've talked about affirmations. We've talked about imagining a new you. And now we're going to talk about creating new beliefs. Beliefs are very important. I don't mean necessary beliefs like, you believe in a fact. I mean like a fundamental unconscious belief that you have about the world that you just kind of do by default. A good example might be if you're struggling to lose weight, let's say. The belief might be to eat healthy food has to taste bad. Now, you may not come out and say that, but when you go to, let's say, try to lose weight, that's what enters your head. And it may be beliefs based on your past. When I was growing up, whenever our family ate healthy, the food did not taste good. I remember it did not. Like, my family growing up, the way my parents, my mom's always been relatively at a healthy weight, but my dad has been actually pretty significantly overweight most of his life. Probably a couple 100 pounds overweight, honestly, at different times. The way he dieted was slim fast, or it was the day before it was eating all this great food. The day after it was this hugely restricted, horrible tasting food that he paid way too much for, probably. So, I probably did learn, as he probably learned, that, when you eat healthy, the food tastes bad. That's a fundamental belief. So when it comes time to lose weight, that's what is entering your mind. Now, you might not know it's entering your mind. So, of course, you're not going to want to lose weight. If you have a fundamental belief that eating healthy food tastes bad, then you're not going to stick with any healthy eating plan. Because why would you? Because who wants to eat bad food for a year? I don't. Or the rest of their life, even, if you want to maintain the weight. That makes no sense. Slim, oh, yeah. Yeah, Slim Slow's a lot better. Yeah, my dad, yeah, I remember the Slim Fast shakes. Oh my goodness. I remember that taste very well. I remember trying it occasionally. Like, I think I lasted on Slim Fast for about like maybe 3 days. I think I tried it for 3 days. But see, now my belief on eating healthy is very different. My belief is that eating healthy, I love healthy food. My girlfriend's owner, she can tell you. I get these low carb buns from Aldi. I love them. Like, I will eat them plain even because I love them so much. Well, I will say, Davina, I do actually like the taste of Slim Fast. Believe it or not. The problem is I would need to drink like 10 of them to feel full. I probably could drink 10 of them. But yeah, the taste is very good. The taste is pretty good. That's not, and let's take the beliefs about relationships. My goodness, these are really interesting beliefs, right? Like, we may have the belief, for example, that if you leave a relationship, you are a failure. That's a common belief that I see, like an unconscious belief. If I leave a relationship, I'm a failure. Now imagine if you have that belief, what that's going to do to your life. You're going to stay in relationships way longer than you need to. You're going to fight for a relationship that really can never be fought for. You can't win that fight, right? If you're trying to save a relationship that maybe you started when you, like, years ago, when you were a different person, years ago when they were a different person, right? But that fundamental belief is kind of unconsciously inside you that if I leave, I'm a failure. Or if you leave, you're a bad person. If you leave a partner who is somehow struggling in some way, like maybe your toxic partner has mental health issues, or there's something that they need help with, that if you leave them, you're a bad person. That's another belief. That's another belief that we can have. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Davina, if that's what's going on, if you're having trouble leaving because of that. But that is tough. It is tough. Like, we have these fundamental beliefs. We don't even know we have them. Because no one wants to be a bad person. If you truly have that belief that you're a bad person if you leave a relationship when your partner needs you in some way, right? Then you're not going to leave that relationship because you're going to believe you're a bad person for doing that, right? And these are how our fundamental beliefs can limit us. Or we often have beliefs about money. I'll admit, my beliefs about money were pretty warped growing up, I remember hearing a lot about, like, my family grew up kind of struggling financially. My dad was a minister, and we didn't have a lot of money. And I remember hearing a lot about like financial crises, and money was simultaneously something that you heard was not necessarily good, right? Because you didn't money was bad in some ways. The root, the love of money is the root of all evil, but we didn't have a lot of it, and that created a really weird view of money in my view. And also too, I learned unconsciously growing up that you give everything away for free. Everything's got to be for free. If someone's in need, you go out and you give it to them. You don't ever charge. I remember my mom volunteered everything. My mom hardly would never want to charge for anything. So I learned a lot of things about money. You work for free, you put your head down and work even if you don't get a fair wage, you struggle with money. I learned a lot. Welcome, Wanted Hero Superfan. So what this is for the last 7 days, I've just been focusing on, long story short, it's about changing your internal reality and how you show up. And if you do both of those things, you will bring new things into your life, is basically what it's about. And it's challenging people to go out and do that. I even like 5 minutes a day. I made this the other day in the email I sent out related to the challenge. If you can just change how you show up for 5 minutes a day, I think people's lives would change dramatically. Same with beliefs. Like let's say the belief we have that we're not worthy. If we could suspend that belief for just 5 minutes, what would happen? Or we could replace that with a different belief. Or if we could replace the belief, let's say that if I leave my relationship, let's say it's a bad relationship, if I leave my relationship, I'm a failure. If we could replace that belief with, if I leave a relationship that is not working at the right time, I'm actually succeeding. Like imagine if that belief could be replaced with that. Or if taking charge of my relationship on my terms is success rather than failure. Like imagine if we could shift those beliefs. And that's kind of what today's is about. I don't know who that is. I'm a hodgepodge of a lot of different things. One of the Hero Superfan. In terms of people that, it's hard to even, I read so much and have seen so much. So it's like a hodgepodge of all kinds of different things. One person I do really like, from a philosophy standpoint to some degree is Joe Dispenza. I like him. I also listen to a lot of Andrew Huberman. I have like so many influences. It's very hard to pin it down to just one philosophy. So, I'm not a big fan of Chicago Deep Dish either. I'll check him out. Interesting. Neville. Let me see. Do I have a book by him? I may have a book by Neville Goddard. Let me look it up here. Real quick. I have my Kindle up on my computer. I may have one of his books. Let me see here. If he's older, I do have some of those old school books along those same lines. But I gotta check. Some of the names, I'm not always good to remember names. Yeah, I could. I do a lot of hypnosis online, Davina. Absolutely. I do a lot of hypnosis online. Yeah, but not on live as much because the hypnosis, it would be hard to do it kind of intimately, I would say, to have that level of intimacy on live. Let me look here if I have a book by him. I guess I don't. I'll look him up. I'm sure I've seen his videos or some of his talks. I'm sure I have. Yeah, now Joseph Murphy, yes, I do have some of his books, yes. I have The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I do have that book by him, and I have a couple others by him. So I do know some of those old school names, yes. But I will check that out. I probably have seen his stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Davina, sorry I was kind of missing some of your comments. Well, that's kind of what, in terms of hypnosis, that's what hypnosis is about. It's getting into the unconscious part of you that really, I always say the unconscious mind wants one thing. It wants familiarity. It does. Once we've done something a certain way for a long time, our unconscious mind wants to keep it the same, which is kind of like you said, like something that's not healthy can feel very familiar. And once it feels familiar, your unconscious mind wants to maintain it. It does. If you look at the brain, your brain can, in fact, I have a book coming out soon. It's not out yet. I need it out because I'm always talking about it every live. I have a book coming out about breaking your addiction to someone toxic. And in that book, I do talk about it a lot, that when you get used to something and you repeat it and you pair it with emotion, what ends up happening is that becomes your normal. Now, academically and logically, we could, we could answer, like, I bet right now, I'm not trying to call you out or anything, I promise, but like, I bet logically right now, if I gave you a quiz about how to be treated in a relationship, you would pass it 100%. You would answer everything correct, right? But unconsciously, meaning emotionally, habit-wise, unconsciously, there's something about that feels normal, because you've been used to it, right? Because you have, because you've done it for a long time. Probably could be because of what I mentioned in the book. It's called intermittent rewards and punishments. It's because there's parts of you that person made you feel really good in the past, and you're chasing that feeling to some degree. Or you feel like if you leave, you might have to deal with something, right? They might punish you in some capacity. Maybe they'll give you the silent treatment. Maybe they'll threaten you, whatever it is, right? So these are all things that get us addicted at an unconscious level. That's what ends up happening. So consciously and logically, we know what we're supposed to do, but the unconscious part of us, which is a huge part of us, it's got other intentions. Unfortunately, that's kind of how it happens. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. But as a hypnotist, that's kind of what I work with, is your unconscious, right? Hey, welcome, Brandy. It's good to see you. I am neither, Michael Jackson. Honestly, I'm neither. I don't get into that culture war stuff. I think for myself largely, and that means I don't really, like, depending on what I'm talking about, I could be all across the spectrum. So that's how I see it. I'm not much into the culture war, or I follow this thing, that thing, I certainly don't like arguing about it all day. I'll tell you that much. And that's where like unconscious beliefs come in too. Because a lot of these beliefs are not conscious. Like a conscious belief would be like, I believe relationships should be healthy. That's a conscious belief, right? An unconscious belief could be that that leaving this relationship is scary, or going out and being single again is scary, or having to break the lease that I have with my current partner is scary, and I will never be able to accomplish it. That's an example of a belief that you may have. For example, Davina, you may have that belief right now, right? That is scary to you. That's the unconscious belief. I don't know your situation, but that's often why people do stay, because they believe, well, going out on my own again is going to be scary. Breaking a lease on the apartment I have with my toxic partner is scary. And how am I going to navigate that? Or divorces are expensive and I don't think I can handle that. Like, these are the beliefs that go in our head unconsciously. And then now what ends up happening is we know logically that yes, break a lease. Like, who cares? Like, you can break it and you'll figure it out, or maybe the lease is up, you'll figure it out, right? But unconsciously, your brain is going to tell you that, man, it's so scary. Because the way our unconscious mind works too is it often accepts the familiar difficulty as normal, and it magnifies the unfamiliar difficulty as being horrible, right? So a good example is the familiar difficulty of being with someone toxic. Our unconscious mind downplays that. We'll like make excuses. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. Who cares? I deal with it, right? But the new thing gets magnified in your head. Well, it is probably home for you, Davina. It is probably home. Yes. When we've done something long enough, it becomes kind of home. It becomes home. So I've explained this on the previous live, but I'll briefly explain it again. So the more often you do something, the more it's actually physically wired in your brain. It is. Like physically. So the brain is made of neurons that make connections. And the more often you make connections between neurons, the stronger the wiring is. Which means, that what you've done with your partner, the experiences, is literally wired into your brain. It's literally like riding a bicycle, right? If you've ever ridden a bicycle, like, I haven't ridden a bicycle probably for a couple years. I have one sitting over there. I probably should. I actually like riding my bike, but I can hop right back on that and ride. Like, I'll just hop on and go. I don't need, it's familiar to me, right? And that's because when I was young, I learned how to ride it. I became good at it, and now it's wired in my brain. Now, if you asked me to ride a unicycle, that would be tough, right? That would be tough. I'd struggle. I'd have to fall off. I'd have to get back on. That wouldn't feel like home. You know what I mean? But the bicycle would feel like home. Now, the reason the bicycle feels like home is because I practiced it. I learned it. I've repeated it, right? And this is how a new home can be developed, right? You have to develop that new home in the same way the old home became familiar. But the problem is when you've done something so many times, that old home is going to tell you, this is normal. This is the way it is. Like everything else is weird. That's what your brain's going to tell you. But it's not, that's not the case. It's just you've done that so many times that your brain now interprets it as normal, right? Like there are people that can hop on a unicycle and are great at unicycles. And they're probably, maybe they've never ridden a bicycle. They would think riding a bicycle is weird, right? But because I'm used to a bicycle, that's why the bicycle is normal to me. Well, and that's fair, Davina, that is fair. You do have to weigh your options, right? You have. But let me share something called the sunk cost fallacy with you. You familiar with the sunk cost fallacy? So the sunk cost fallacy is a tendency we have to, if we've invested in something for a long time, we tend to stick with it even if it's a bad investment, okay? When logically, so imagine, let's say I invested $1 million in landline telephones. Now, that's a bad investment these days, right? No one buys landline telephones anymore. But let's say instead of saying, you know what, I've lost $1 million, I should get out of that immediately and start investing in something new. Our brain wants to say, well, I've already put $1 million in, I might as well put $1 million more and maybe something will change. But it never changes, right? It never changes. And that's what your brain is telling you right now, unfortunately. So continuing to invest in something that is not working for you is just throwing money after bad. Good money after bad is all it's doing. But your brain, see again, these are tricks of your brain. It's called a fallacy because it's not logical, but our brain does tend toward that direction. It is easier said than done. Now, if you're interested in leaving, like you're actually interested in leaving and you want to talk about it, we can. I do work with clients some. We can meet for free if you're interested. I do have, on my bio, I have a way to meet. You can just schedule. It'd be just like a brief Zoom session. If you're interested, just let me know. I do work with clients who are struggling with those sorts of things. It is something that is, like I said, it's pretty deep in there. If you go to my bio, you can, there's upper left-hand corner, there's a way to do that. Okay. You will see the link in there. Let me just quickly check one thing here, because I need to, just check something real quick because, my schedule did change a little bit because of, the 4th of July. So I need to, the 4th holiday. So I got to change something in here just real quick so I don't accidentally get something scheduled that I would have to reschedule. Got to be responsible. So, okay, yeah. So if you check my bio, the cost of what, Street Vibes? The cost of being here or the challenge or meeting with me? I'm not sure what you're asking. So the Manifestation Challenge is just something I'm doing on TikTok every day. Oh, no, there's no cost. There's no cost. It's just I send out emails every day summarizing what we're doing. That's all it is. In fact, there's only one day left. I'm going to come tomorrow at 5 o'clock tomorrow evening. Yeah, it's just a challenge where every day I come on here at noon and it's about changing your mindset, changing how you show up. And by doing that, your life will change. That's what I truly believe. And today we're talking about beliefs, creating new beliefs. Now, the first way to actually create a new belief is to understand you have an old belief, an unconscious. Oh, cool. Awesome. Well, that's awesome, Street Vibes. Excellent. Cool. Now, my bio does not have, let me check something here real quick here. My bio, I just changed my bio back to my regular bio because that way I have more information about what I do and stuff like that. Well, that's awesome, Street Vibes. I'm the same way. The reason I'm doing this challenge is because it's impacted my life so much. Absolutely impacted my life. I mean, praise Zeus. Well, Zeus is a cool god. I can agree with that. I've read some ancient mythology. So I don't have a link on my direct me to this actual challenge, but I'm going to add it after this. After this live, I will add it. So if you go to my bio, the direct.me link will have a link to the emails I've been sending out to this challenge. But yeah, I mean, the reason I talk about manifestations a lot, because it has absolutely changed my life. It's the reason I am on TikTok. It's the reason I am doing hypnosis. It is the reason I'm living the current life I am right now. 100%. 100%. And I have a book I just wrote. It's only on Kindle at the moment. The Art of Hypnotic Manifestation. I tell my story in that, actually. I tell my story how I got into manifestation, how actually I manifested living here. The town I live in now, I actually set an intention to live here because I thought it was such a nice town. It was like the perfect town for me. And now it sounds like it's not a big deal, like, oh, well, you moved to a town, who cares? But at the time, there was only 2 possible jobs I could have taken in the entire county of 100,000 people that were in the area that I worked in. Literally 2, I know, because it was a teacher at a private school for a very narrow topic. And there were 2 jobs in the entire county that I could have taken. Not that were open, that I could have taken. And one of those jobs actually came open that year, and I ended up getting it and moved here, which is fascinating. I mean, it's hard to convince me sometimes of spiritual things because I am fairly skeptical, but that was pretty impressive. And I will say, like, the things I'm talking about on here, I absolutely have used and have changed my life. So the first step of creating a new belief is to recognize your old belief, to start to come up with the unconscious beliefs that, I have some street vibes, but I don't really use them directly necessarily, but I do have some. I mean, I do find them pretty fascinating, yeah. But not really directly, but I do have some. I have quite a few sitting around, yeah. And I do use them some. My girlfriend's on here. She could talk more about that. But I have some. I do. I do, Farm Girl, that. Yeah, I do have Motivite as well. I have Motivite. But you were on here the other day asking about Motivite. Was that you? Someone came on here the other day and was asking about Motivite. Yes, I do have that. But so first of all, you have to understand what your old belief is, right? You have to get real with what it is you actually unconsciously believe. To start asking yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, for example, I mentioned some relationship beliefs that are very common. Like the belief that if I end a relationship, I'm a failure. That's a very common unconscious belief I see in people. So they will stick out a relationship for years. Same with jobs. People believe if they leave a job, they're a failure. That's a pretty strong, deeply wired belief that a lot of people have. Now, here's how you can change that belief. You got to start questioning and asking yourself, what would be a more helpful belief? Like, what if I believe that leaving a relationship at the right time was actually a sign of success and not failure, right? What if it was? Or what if leaving an unhealthy partner was a sign of succeeding in a relationship, right? Because they could be. In some ways, that belief actually makes more sense, right? So we have all these beliefs that shape. Hey, welcome, Lacey. It's good to see you, and thank you. I appreciate you saying that. She is very beautiful. So we have all these beliefs that shape us. I mentioned the belief about health earlier too. Like if your unconscious belief is that healthy food tastes bad, you will never lose weight. You won't, because why would you ever eat healthy food if you believe it tastes bad? And that's the belief I was kind of unconsciously raised to believe, right? Because growing up, that's the way it was. Whenever our family ate healthy, it was food I didn't like. So yeah, unconsciously, I have the belief that eating healthy means you have to eat bad. And a lot of people have that belief. Or they have the belief that that exercise must be difficult. Exercise means packing up clothes in a gym bag, driving to the gym, working out, and going home. Now, that is how I work out, and I enjoy it. But for a lot of people, that's not a very empowering belief because they don't like doing that. Maybe they don't like going to the gym. Maybe they don't have time to do all those things. So maybe a better belief is that exercise is any sort of movement that you get, any sort of intense movement. So you can now get exercise anywhere. You can exercise by walking around the block. You can exercise by hiking. You can exercise by literally dancing in your house, right? These are just examples of how we can have fundamental beliefs that deeply alter what we do. And we can challenge these beliefs and then replace them with more helpful beliefs. And Mark, that's hopefully that helps her out. And that's true, Mark. That is true. And that is why. Because, when we're raised with the belief, especially at an unconscious level, it is so powerful. It is so powerful because it is like deeply embedded in us at an emotional level. And it's so familiar. It is so ingrained. And what ends up happening is it's so ingrained that we don't even challenge it's a thing, right? Like we don't even question that it's a thing when it's so deeply ingrained. It's kind of the example of the belief, for example. I saw this as a teacher and I see this among parents. And this is kind of it's a funny belief to me, but I think you'll relate to this. Most people unconsciously have the belief that if you want to discipline a kid, you yell at them, right? I saw that among teachers and I see it among parents. But yet, what's funny is, it's because they were raised that way. But I've never yet met a person that ever said they liked being yelled at, that they ever responded to being yelled at. When I was yelled at as a kid, I responded one of two ways. I was either thinking about how I'm going to rebel later when they're done yelling at me, or I was laughing at them later. In fact, there's still adults to this day that yelled and screamed at me that I still laugh about to this day, right? But it's funny because that's an example of a belief that we often pick up from a parent or a teacher that did not ever work with us, that we now have integrated into our own life and never questioned, right? Because it's just so familiar to us. Even when I started teaching, that was my first, I was a teacher for a while, that was my first go-to. Raise my voice, assume that students, like I mentioned this in my book, I actually outlined in my chapter in my new book, The Art of Hypnotic Manifestation, in the chapter on beliefs, I actually outline the beliefs that I came into when I started teaching that made my teaching experience miserable my first year. And for example, one belief was that when a student acts out, it is a personal attack on me. That was an unconscious belief I had. I think a lot of parents have that belief as well. When a kid acted out, it was a personal attack on me. It was all about me. But I changed my belief because I realized a lot of kids aren't acting out because of me. They're acting out because of them. They're acting out because of their home life, the way they were raised, because they're bored, they're having a bad day. Now, I'm not excusing that behavior. I'm not excusing it, but I'm saying they weren't acting out because of me necessarily. They were acting out because of their own issues, right? And once I changed that belief, I was then able to interact with those kids in a totally different way. I was able to joke around with them, diffuse the situation, talk to them about the situation, and it's funny. After that year, I had no problems with students. I had no problems. And the other teachers were like, this kid acts horrible in my class. I'm like, well, he doesn't in mine. Maybe because I talked to him rather than yell. I'm like, he goes home. I didn't say this directly because they would have been pretty angry. But I'm like, he goes home and they yell. His parents yell and scream at him all day. He probably hates that. He probably has been reacting to that. And then you yell and scream at him all day. So it's probably not too motivating to yell and scream at this kid. You know what I mean? Right? And that's just an example of a fundamental belief that it's so hard to even question that belief because it's so deeply wired into who we are. And we have these beliefs that run the entire gamut, don't we? We have this belief that runs throughout the entire gamut of our lives, and we don't even question it. And Mark, that's a good point. The Amish are the same way. Amish, they have this, it's fascinating. They can be raised in an environment just a few miles. We have a lot of Amish people here. A few miles away from, the rest of society, and they can have these totally different beliefs that totally shape how they see reality. And we're the same way. We're the exact same way. We have fundamental beliefs that we just assume are true, and we never even start to question them. Now, when you start to question them, that's when your life will change. That's when your life will change. When you start to replace the belief that it's your responsibility to fix your toxic partner, when you start to change that with the belief that it's your responsibility to show up in an authentic way and they are responsible for fixing themselves, your life will change dramatically. That one little belief, if everyone in a toxic relationship who is staying because they're trying to fix their partner, if everyone changed that little belief, you would see relationships change overnight. The world would change. Imagine that. Because a lot of people have this belief that it is their responsibility to fix their partner. And if they don't fix their partner, they are a failure. Now think about that. They're the failure if they don't fix someone else. It's bizarre, isn't it? But that's the belief a lot of people have. Or the belief that if I leave this relationship, I'm a failure. Or if I leave this relationship, I'm a bad person because they have problems. and I need to fix those problems. But what if the belief instead was the relationship has changed so that their problems are now causing me problems, and I am unable to even come close to fixing them because now I need to fix myself because of what they've done to me. And two people in need of fixing is not going to do anything. So the best thing for me to do is to leave this relationship, wish that person the best, maybe get them a little help if I can, but then take responsibility for myself and not them. That's a long belief, but think about how that would fundamentally change the nature of your relationship. Now, you may, as I'm doing this, you might be saying, this sounds pretty easy. Well, it is pretty easy. Now, yes, applying it and following through is not always easy, but once you start to do this process of challenging your old beliefs, exploring your unconscious beliefs, and then just even entertaining new beliefs, your life will change, right? Your life will change. Just entertaining a new belief. I read this quote yesterday. I'll read it again because I loved it. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's from the movie Inception, one of my favorite movies, along with another movie by the same guy that produced it, Interstellar, great movie too. The main character says, Leonardo DiCaprio's character says, an idea is like a virus, resilient, highly contagious. The smallest seed of an idea can grow, and it can grow to define or destroy you. And that is how powerful an idea is. Just like entertaining a new belief is so powerful. Just entertaining it. The possibility that you could believe something different. You could believe that leaving your toxic relationship is possible. That you could believe starting fresh after being with someone who's drained you is actually exciting. Imagine if that was your belief. Like getting out of your stale, old relationship that makes you feel horrible, that you've struggled in for years or even decades. Imagine that you could believe that getting out of that is actually exciting rather than scary. That the process of ending it can be just as normal to you as the process of staying in it. Like imagine if that belief is the new belief you could have. And see, what I'm doing right now, you guys might not know this. This is like some of the stuff I do when I work with clients. This is some hypnosis type stuff. But what I'm doing is I'm getting your frontal lobe part of your brain to be active. That's the part of your brain that imagines things, that sees a way forward, that's creative. And when you're stuck in a stressful situation, that part of your brain becomes less active because your brain is so stressed out all the time. There's not enough energy to go to that area of your brain. You're stuck in survival mode. Your threat detection system is active. Your amygdala is, becoming dysfunctional. The stress hormones are filling your body. And when that happens, your brain something has to give. So it takes away resources from the frontal lobe part of your brain. And your frontal lobe part of your brain is what's actually responsible for imagining change and making change. So their hearts studieth destruction and their lips talk of mischief. Okay, studieth. That's some old King James language there. So I'm not sure what the relevance of that is. That about, am I the one talking mischief? Or are we just talking about people who they have beliefs that lead them to do things like that? So, and that's true, Mark. Some people do stay for their kids. And now that's a belief too. Now that's an issue where, I could see it kind of both ways. Okay, I was just curious, Chris. I was just curious. That's a belief as well, isn't it? That, hey, the belief that if we stay together at all costs, it's great for the kids, right? But maybe that's not true. Maybe a kid seeing parents fight all the time and hate each other and never be on the same page and be miserable. Maybe that's the harmful thing to the kid, right? Again, I'm not weighing in on that topic because I know that is a tough topic. But in terms of like changing your beliefs and challenging your beliefs and imagining a new belief, that is an area where, someone could start to think about that. What is my belief about that? And is that belief helpful? Is that belief helpful? I'll be honest, like my belief about jobs, I've noticed can be very, very limiting for me. I'm the one that stays at jobs way too long. I think it's partly because I developed some unconscious beliefs that, you always see things through. You never leave. You only leave when everything's entirely stable and together. Like I kind of got that belief. So I've stayed at jobs way too long. I mean, when you think about it, everyone's replaceable in most jobs when you think about it. I mean, even the job I left, which I'm glad I did, to do like to do this full time, I'm thinking, oh, they'll have trouble. The ego says, oh, they'll miss me. What? They didn't miss me. They had knee replaced within probably a week. They didn't miss me. They're doing fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's the point. The job that we're staying in, that we're worried about, that everything might fall apart if we leave, I doubt it will. I doubt it'll fall apart. That's just a belief, right? Maybe a better belief would be to create a new belief that, I need to work a job that makes me feel great and that gives me the life that I need. And, I'll be responsible about leaving a job. I'll give them notice and I will, help them out and do the best I can. But I got to move on to a job that's good for me, right? I got to do that. Or I got to at least take the steps to do that. Maybe now's not the time to leave, but maybe now is the time. The belief that I often have is I'm too old to get this training, or it's too late to do this training, or I'm too old to start this, right? Those are some beliefs I have to challenge myself on, because I had those beliefs even when I was in my 20s. I remember when I was 24, thinking about getting some more training. I'm like, oh, I've already been to college and I don't know if I want to do it. I'm looking back, I'm like, I wish I would have done it then, because I'm not too old now, let alone too old then. But those are those beliefs that we have that stop us from doing things. It's funny, our brain will be like, nah, I don't think you have time to take classes. You don't have the time or money to take classes. But then your brain's like, oh yeah, but I do have the time and money to scroll for 4 hours a day or spend hundreds of dollars for items on Amazon I can't afford, right? That's how our brain works. Once we get stuck in an old reality, our brain just naturally flows to that. And it's going to make the new reality seem absurd. You know what I'm saying? Oh, wow, Mark, that's interesting. $3.30. I remember when minimum wage was $3.35. I remember that number. When I had my first job, it went up to $4.25. I remember my first job, I got $4.25. Which, looking back, that's that's not very much. Well, good job, King. Awesome. Welcome, by the way. That's awesome. Yes. I find that the main point of this manifestation challenge, honestly, is about I'll just share it. I call this the manifestation maxim. It's in my new book. And to paraphrase it, it's basically, if you want to change your reality, you have to change your internal reality. Then you have to show up differently, and you have to do that in as many present moments as possible. That's my manifestation maxim. So basically it is internal reality has to change. You got to do something about it, and you got to be this new person in as many present moments as possible. That's how change happens. And if you do that, I promise you, your life will change. If you are afraid to talk to people, you're afraid to network, you're afraid to do that, if you start to show up a little bit differently in more moments, your life will change. I promise you. If you let's say your belief is that you can't get a better job, it's past your prime, so why bother taking classes? Who cares about putting resumes out? No one's going to like me anyway. If those are your beliefs, you're going to manifest that. But if you start to show up a little differently and say, you know what, I'm going to take this course. It costs just as much as my Netflix does for a year. I'm going to take this course. You know what, I'm going to put some resumes. I'm going to put some resumes out just to see what happens. Who knows? I'm going to, when I'm around people and they're talking about a subject that maybe relates to, the job I want, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm going to say something. Just imagine if that was how you started showing up versus the old way. Even just a little bit. Just in as many moments as you possibly could show up. Just a little bit. I promise you, your life would change. I promise. Your life would change. Well, that's an interesting point, Mark. When I graduated, the internet was just coming around. I remember it was 1995 when I first got my first email address. So I was fortunate that as soon as I graduated, the internet was just starting to get into full swing. And I'll be honest, the internet has benefited me a lot. It really has. It really has. So I'm grateful. Now, I know the internet has problems. I think social media can cause a lot of problems. I think there's a lot of distractions. But if you can get past all that, the internet has been an amazing opportunity. I would never be, to talk to you guys now, I'd have to rent a place and get everyone here. I could not imagine speaking in front of people like this prior to the internet. It just would have been very difficult. Now, I probably would have tried to do it because I do like this sort of thing, but it would have been very difficult. So, yes, I'm very grateful for the internet. Guys, I do have to go. I got some things I need to do today. Plus, I noticed my nose is starting to tickle. I'm getting ready to sneeze, and I will wait till I get off live to sneeze. So, I appreciate y'all showing up. I've been doing this 7-day manifestation challenge, focusing on, like I said, changing your internal reality, showing up differently because of that, and then intentionally doing that in as many moments as possible. And, I've been into this stuff since 2010. I have a hypnosis business now that builds on a lot of that. And what I'm talking about here is kind of a summary of that I've learned and put into practice over the last 13 years. And I promise you, my life has changed dramatically. And that includes significant weight loss, changing jobs, getting into great relations, not just changing jobs, but upgrading, all kinds of things. Like it really has been. Like, I am a true believer in this. I am saying this because it's changed my life. That's the only reason I'm here. I mean that. And guys, you want to learn more about me and what I do, I have on my bio, I have more information. I just released a book that goes over a lot of what I'm talking about today. It is listed, it's linked in my bio under my direct.me. If you want to book a session, please do. I work with clients on all kinds of issues, getting into the unconscious mind and making those changes. And a lot of what I do on here, I do in my sessions, only on a more personal, direct level. And I have a new book coming out soon in a couple weeks, hopefully a couple weeks, fingers crossed. And it's about breaking your addiction to someone toxic. And that one's going to be 260 some pages. It's going to be pretty significant. It's going to take everything that I've learned, and also from my time on TikTok, because I've spent a lot of time talking about relationships, almost everything I've learned and the science behind it, and delving into why you're addicted, what it means, and how to break that addiction at that unconscious level. So that'll be in a couple weeks, so stay tuned. Guys, it's great seeing you. Have an amazing, amazing Saturday. And if you find yourself doing something you don't want, ask yourself, what belief is behind this? What do I believe about that? Why am I doing this? What belief is behind this? And imagine a new belief. Imagine a new belief that could be possible. And once your brain imagines it, the idea of doing it actually seems kind of a little more feasible as well. So guys, have a great day. It's good seeing you.